Yes, welcome to my XCOM 2 review. The little hypertext link on the left down side I won't get away. But let's talk about what this game makes different to XCOM 2. Well, the story of XCOM Chimera Squad is actually more interesting than XCOM 2. You are no longer a member of the Resistance, or basically now it is the Resistance who is running the whole thing. The Resistance is running all the whole thing. They have freed the aliens from oppression. Also, some of the aliens might see that a little bit different. Well, as you will find out in the story. But we're talking about Chimera Squad. Basically, XCOM is now the Council for Reconciliation, and we're talking about the story of Chimera Squad, about XCOM, about City 31. The story of that place is basically City 31, or the place where the story takes place is basically City 31, as you can see in the background. Well, City 31 is was basically once occupied by Advent and the Eldars, who of course suppressed the whole, manipulated all the aliens to invade the planet, and now the aliens are stranded on the planet. C-31 was after the war run by a mercenary group for some time. As the resistance progressed, Advent had to keep the C-31 quiet, and therefore hired a mercenary/resistance group to keep the peace. And that is the situation we're now in. The mercenary group is gone, but the peace in C-31 is actually pretty fragile. It doesn't help that the mayor, who is an alien and basically stands for the peace between humans and aliens, unfortunately gets blown up by a very, very aggressive rebel group. The story is now as follows. We have to find out which one of the three factions blew the mayor up. Or wasn't it one of the three factions we're investigating? Maybe. To the gameplay. XCOM 2 differs in terms of gameplay from XCOM Chimera Squad differs from XCOM 2. You don't have big maps anymore. It is not like you have to walk over a big map. No, your maps are small and there is no fog of war, so basically you can see anything on the map at every time. The maps are one mission can contain up to 3 maps. These maps are separated into several encounters. So basically, if the map changes, it starts another encounter. If you, for example, fulfill the mission target in the first and second encounter, you can progress to the second or third encounter. So far, so clear. But before you go into this so-called encounter, you can do something. You can actually breach. Breach means you enter the map, and as soon as you breach, you come into breach mode. As you can see here, before the breach comes, you can choose which in which order you want your agents to go in. That is an interesting new feature. Breach areas can have certain advantages or disadvantages. The 5 cover means that it is a very advantageous entrance. For example, they can also have very buffs or debuffs. For example, they can mark all of your units for the whole encounter, or it could be that you could go on Overwatch, or that your units go out automatically on Overwatch till your encounter is through. So that is a interesting way. But there are, for example, some areas that are not very accessible. For example, vents. You need, for example, snakes to go into the vents, to go through the vents. The problem is you don't know when this event will occur, on which mission that you would need a snake. You can either way decide between, for the second guy you can always decide, should he do something special, or do you just want to go breach fire? What that is, I'll explain later. For example, that the medic can heal everyone up before the next encounter. But that will, for example, if you use something special, this will basically restrain you from going for breach fire. That is what breach fire looks like. You have 3 types of enemies here. These are surprised. They mainly stand in the open and are very easy to pick off. These enemies are alerted. Alerted means they are mostly in half cover, and they can cast an ability or run to cover in the first round during the breach or shortly after the breach. These enemies are aggressive. Aggressive means that they will fire at your units after your units breach fired in. So either way, you have an ability to delay your enemy. You can use an ability to, for example, as with the shield guy, you can use Fenlex, which is just usable during breach. That means he will overload his shield and draw all the fire onto himself, which basically means that your units will suffer no damage. Aggressive units must not be taken out, but that doesn't mean that aggressive units should be taken out first. Sometimes it is better to take the hit by the aggressive units instead of... It is sometimes better to take a hit from the aggressive units than to let one of the units survive. For example, if there's a really nasty unit which on the long term, if you let it live, will deal more damage after the breach to you than one of the aggressive units could ever do, you should go for the strategic target first. This means that Xcom is basically Xcom Chimera Squad is pretty tactical. You have to think about which enemy do I want to hit. Of course, you don't need to hit enemies that are not... not hittable. You might, for example, if he's a very, very dangerous target, you may take the risk and shoot at 50%. But you can miss during breaches. That should be cleared. This is your mission map. What does that mean? That basically just is a warning, a signal warning. It is not really important. The only thing that is important on these this is the unrest. This is just a colorful signal. This just signals this is the unrest. You have city anarchy and then you have the unrest. What is the difference between city anarchy? The difference between city anarchy and unrest is that if the city anarchy is full, you lose the game. But how do we gain city anarchy? Well, good question. You can either way gain, you can just gain city anarchy if you can just get city anarchy if you, for example, if these are full. That is the only way. The next so if these are fully filled up and if this is fully filled up, then the city anarchy will rise +1 for each sector over time, of course. You mostly have the choice between different missions. You can, for example, choose between growth industry or finders keepers. What does that mean? That means each mission offers you different advantages or disadvantages. For example, you can reduce the anarchy in the sector. You get 40 intel, which is one of the resources you get. You got 3 resources. This you need for research. This you need for the scavengers market, which will occasionally appear. I'll come to that later. And these you will need, for example, to buy new stuff in the supply. So how does this work? You can get items, you can get field teams, free field teams. Field teams give you certain advantages. For example, these give you income. These will reduce the district unrest over time. These will also reduce the district unrest, but not really as much as these. So each week they will reduce the district unrest -2. You have to decide between missions. If you leave a mission, the city unrest will rise. First for 2, and first for 1, then for 2, and then for 3. So further you progress into the story, the more the city unrest will rise. You have certain things to keep cheesing to basically prevent sectors from going full on unrest. This is vigilance, and this will reduce your unrest immediately. This is basically quarantine. You can quarantine a whole sector, so you can keep it from getting unrest for the next 2 rounds. And this is Major Crimes Task Force. This will prevent the unrest up here. This will lower the city unrest, but you see, I don't have city anarchy, so I don't need to use it. This is Dragnets. If you have an investigation, this will provide you with better resources. What does it mean? You've got two types of missions. You've got three types of missions. You've got normal missions. They will, if ignored, boost your unrest. What does it mean? You can just keep one mission per day. If you ignore one, the unrest will rise. So, in order to prevent that from going to 5 unrest, you should, for example, make that mission instead of that mission. Then you have investigations. They come every second day, or no, every first day. Missions come every second day. Investigations can be boosted with Dragnet. They will basically go immediately. They will be resolved immediately. Missions you have to fight. So from investigations you gain resources. Missions on normally you just don't have to do anything, but they will get your unrest up for 1 if they are ignored. These are hidden missions. You have two types of these story missions. In order to knock out a faction, you have to complete the story missions. You cannot do anything else. What does that mean with completing the story mission? That basically means these are hidden, so you can't do them right away. They are annoying because they will drive the unrest up, so you should use your abilities to keep the unrest from rising. And depending if you, for example, do special missions, the unrest, you get the target revealed quicker. So you need 4 days, you need to wait 4 days till you can do those missions. In the meanwhile, they will push the unrest for +1 per day. The field teams are interesting stuff. The field teams provide you with advantages or disadvantages. These will give you income, and these will boost your income in this sector, and these will boost your intelligence income. They will provide another advantage here. If you have a mission in this sector with a technology field team and you have it fully upgraded, it reveals, then it boosts 1 day, then it gets 1 day off the hidden target if you get the hidden mission. Now we come to the not so pleasant things. The not so pleasant things. The not so pleasant things basically happen with him most of the time. What does it mean? They happen with him. He's quite the very big and bulky model or character model. That means, for example, sometimes he bugs around the area. That is not much of a big problem. But for example, it can be annoying if he during breach teleports somewhere into the room. You can still shoot at the targets, but he will teleport somewhere into the room, thereby shifting the camera, which is annoying. Sometimes, for example, his animation, if he goes into cover, will be bugged, so he will just be somewhere flying halfway in the air, for example, if he's near cover. So that's one of the greatest things that I find very annoying in this game. There's not much else. Each agent has its own special abilities. This one has a grenade ability. At each rank you can choose between one of these abilities, At the second and at the fourth rank, you can choose between which ability you want to go. The other three abilities are set, though you have the choice between that and that ability, and if he goes to Principal Agent, each one of those can learn a new ability. If you get the highest level. After 45 kills, your agents will become Principal Agents. He, for example, can throw a grenade. He has, for example, a sticky grenade, which he can shoot with 100% accuracy. His grenade takes some turns to explode. His grenade takes some turns to explode. Here we have our medic, for example. She can heal each one up, and her gremlin, the little flying drone that you know from XCOM 2, can do some passive protection if he's circling over one of them. He can shield other persons with a impenetrable barrier, just penetrable to poison, fire, and psionic powers, and that will protect them from one attack, but not from the status effect. He can, for example, attack an enemy with his psionic powers. If he does so, he can, for example, he gets a accuracy boost on them, and he can stun them or turn them into berserkers, which means they will attack their enemy once. These are your androids. Androids are there if an agent goes down during a mission. These androids can take over for him. Another annoying thing that I noticed is, for example, is that if you research the highest grade shotguns, the so-called master-crafted shotguns, then there will be a problem. You got normal shotguns, you got enhanced shotguns, and you've got master-crafted. So that's the level for each weapon. The problem is, even if you get to the highest level for each weapon, it will still be shown as enhanced weapon. As an enhanced weapon. That means it is actually a master-crafted, but it will be shown as a enhanced weapon. What does that mean? It has the same effect and deals the same damage as a master-crafted shotgun, because it is a master-crafted shotgun. But the problem is, it is called enhanced shotgun, which has led to some confusion on my side. Though each one of those has its special abilities which you can upgrade, you can partially choose between them, and that is pretty interesting. You don't have your normal 4 classes anymore. You don't have your normal sniper, scout, you don't have your normal sniper, scout stuff. In fact, you don't have any snipers anymore. Your people here don't have any secondary weapons armament anymore. You, instead of snipers, got shotguns, you got submachine guns, you've got assault rifles, and you've got pistols. Not more and not less. 4 weapon types. Training can if an agent goes down, he will have a scar. So you will have to put him into training for 2 rounds. Training can also give him more advantages. For example, unlock potential is someone special to each agent. Uh, this last one here is also, this is if you level your agent up fully, he can learn a special skill. He can learn a special skill. He can unlock potential. This will give him something special for him, just for him, something special, some special ability or some passive boost for him, for example, more dodge or more armor or more HP. Basic conditioning gives him more HP and is for everyone. You've got your supply. Supply items are bought with credits. I guess you know that from XCOM already. You can basically get several stuff from the supply, for example, expanded magazine or extra padding, which will add 1 HP to your units. You've got certain things that you can equip. For example, each agent can equip 1 grenade and one intrusion item and and can get 1 grenade, 1 intrusion item, and some extra stuff, for example, tracer or tranquilizer rounds. Tracer rounds will add more accuracy, tranquilizer rounds will knock out enemies. What does it mean? If an enemy is knocked out, he is not lethally killed. You have a chance for each knocked out enemy of 20% that is stackable. You can stack it to get 20 intel at the end of the mission. This is basically your special operations. These are certain little things you can do. For example, you can get credits, you can get information, you can lower the city, you can lower the whole district unrest in the city for 1. You can, for example, get a free field key team. You can lower city unrest, or you can give all your agents an XP boost. You will that is basically where I have to put another unlucky criticism. You have each one of your factions has a certain each one of your factions has a certain, how should I express that? Each one of your factions has a certain vibe to it. For example, the progeny is like white supremacists, but for psionics. They basically say psionics are superior. Sacred Call says, fuck XCOM, you will get salvation, we will lead you to salvation, but just the people who fought XCOM. Cry Phoenix is basically your normal criminal organization. You can get dark events for each faction. That means you will get certain disadvantages in battle, and yes, you will, for example, get a faction leader. You will fight the faction leader in the boss fight. They will have some quirk to it most of the time, but they are relatively easy to beat. So there's nothing as very special to them. They just have some special attacks, or special quirks, for example, that the Sacred Coil leader can attack more than one time around, and they all have their units, they all have a different kind of unit. For example, the Progeny is a organization for Psykers, so they have many psionic units. Sacred Coil has, for example, many units with Sacred Coil has many units with has many units with fire or for or smoke, and will have defensive turrets who can't move, which is a bad disadvantage for this for the defense turrets, especially if you are like me. Especially if you have, like me, a grenade guy who can attack the turrets indirectly with his grenades, and he never runs out of grenades because it is a skill of him. Well, that makes the whole thing slightly unfair. Grey Phoenix, for example, will have very heavy units. Here is your main room. Here you can access everything from the assembly, where you research new guns, new modules, to the city map, which I've already shown, to your spec ops, your training, your armory, your supply, and your investigation. Investigation is what I have shown. This shows basically, it lists all of these story missions you get. They list all of the story missions you get. Another point of criticism is with the storytelling. You don't get the faction leader, or you do get the you basically get the faction leadership, but you don't meet the faction leader until the end, and the faction leader will never say anything. You will just get told blah blah blah. He is, for example, she is a experiment of Advent, and she can induce psionic capability of her followers, and that's it. You will meet her at the boss fight, but she will never say anything. So the boss you fight, you don't know, is he bad, is he evil, what does he want, why does he do this? You don't get his motives. You don't get his behavior, which is kind of sad. But one thing I have to mention positively at the end is one thing I have to mention very positively at the end is your one thing I have to mention at the end positively is the humor. After completing each mission, you will, for example, have a little conversation through the radio or through the television announcer. So, for example, you get the opinion on these guys or on Sacred Coil, and by the wider population. For example, someone is basically saying, for example, we should get mercenaries back instead of Xcom's Chimera Squad and stuff. You see that, and the humor of this game is pretty nice. It is very, very nice. You, for example, if he moves in, if you choose him as an agent, for example, he can get outrage, or he can get outraged, which will lead to him, for example, getting angry during missions. He can go berserk and lose control and wildly attack an enemy during the mission. Uh, so, for example, as he moves in, he, for example, forcefully moves the stuff of our mission advisor here. And he's after that sorry because he didn't see the note. The mission advisor got the biggest locker in the room, which means which he wanted for himself because he's a pretty big guy. He needs a big locker, of course, and he says, "Yeah, I reserved it for you." So he's actually a pretty nice guy, and he forcefully moved the stuff of him, thinking that he actually had bad intentions at occupying the locker, which is kind of hilarious, I must say. The humor and the little talks between the agents which comes up is actually pretty nice. The problem is, for example, you just get a certain number of agents. You get, so far as I got, you get 8 agents, but you would, for example, need 9 to work to fully function. I don't know if there will be coming agents later up, but I'm pretty far into the game, and it isn't like you get agents at a set amount of time, or you get agents at a set amount of time. So till then you will have to, for example, work with 4 agents. You need at least 5 agents to fully function in case one of your guys goes down. You can either you can halt everything and pop your scarred agent or the agent who has a scar in the training to remove the scar, which is basically that's what the debuff is called. As mentioned, each one has their own unit, so you get and goals. So you get the vibes from that. As mentioned, to create the dark events, for example. As mentioned, you get that. So yes, you get the dark event, so they get a advantage over you. For example, that they can use flashbangs, or that they can recruit more acolytes and sorcerers, who are a pain in the ass, by the way. Or, for example, that their thralls, their most basic units, can get, for example, more HP, or have more HP. All in all, is it worth a buy? Well, there are some bugs in this game. There are some really annoying bugs in this game who are there, but they don't really influence the flow of the game. For example, I encountered one very bad bug. The baddest bug that I encountered so far is, for example, that on one map, through a weird camera angle, I was suddenly on top of the map, and I couldn't uh, and I couldn't I was on top of the map, and I couldn't see what was behind that. I couldn't see the tiles because there was a roof over the building, and the roof wouldn't go away. But through that, I, for example, was able to cheese the game. I was able, for example, with my grenade guy, to throw a grenade on the roof, thereby knocking out the enemies in the next room. The problem is, this mission was very bad because there was a long room. There was a long room. Let's say that is a room. Here's a room, and here is a room. And you can't go. You can just go through here, and the enemies spawned here. And the enemies were stuck at this wall as they tried to attack me, because the majority of my guys was here, and the enemy jumped around this area and this area, and they were basically bugged behind there. So the AI is not always the smartest, but to say this just occurred once, so it is fine. What would I say? Is it worth buying? I would say I got it for 10 euro slash dollar. And I would say it is totally worth your money. You will get like 30-20 hours of gameplay in this game. It doesn't have the best story, or the story isn't told in the best way. There are still some annoying bugs, but well, besides that, you have a pretty solid game which has Xcom mechanics, which is basically a small Xcom, uh, and for 10 euros, it is worth it. Hell, I would even buy it for 20. So, yeah, that is really a nice game. And if you have money and you like turn-based strategy games, then you should check it out. One thing I didn't mention, which also brings a little bit of fun into the game, is the turn order. So you have a turn, and each turn, for example, the enemy can attack, your units can attack, then the enemy then two enemies can attack, then next of your units, then an enemy, then the last of your two units. So basically the turn ends when all of your units are knocked out, and when all of your units, when all units have taken their actions, and when all of the units have taken their actions, and basically um, when all of your units have taken their actions, and mm, when all the units in the game have taken the action, have taken their actions. This includes enemy and friendly units. It isn't like in XCOM. It is first your turn and then the enemy can move his units. They are interlocked, so your agent comes first and then might come the enemy. And that is also bringing a lot of change into the game. So you have to, for example, decide, do I kill the highest possible, highest dangerous unit, or do I want to kill the enemy? Or do I want to kill the enemy of them? Or do I want to kill, for example, the enemy who takes his turn next, and could deal damage to me? So that is also more the reason to check the game out. It is totally worth it for 10/20 euros. And if you liked XCOM, you will like this game. I mean, the humor is better than in XCOM, and that alone is would be worth $5. So yeah, totally check it out. And I hope you'll tune into my XCOM Let's Play.